Where was the National T and the Jewel and the A&P in Barrington?
The National is located on Northwest Highway where the ski shop is right now, in that shopping center complex there. The A&P is where Volvo is currently housed. And Jewel is no longer standing where it used to be. It's currently the Jewel High School on Main Street, but they were at the corner of Station and Huff Street, where the First Federal Savings and Loan building was previously, which became Bank One in later years, and now it's been demolished.
How did the Ice House Mall get its name?
Well, many years ago, they would cut blocks of ice over there. I mean, it was an ice house. My understanding was at one point too that it did serve as a dairy, where they did do some, kept milk containers cool and all that type of thing. But I still remember, well, actually they had a croquet court too outside over there at one point in time, because Max Lyons and some of the old timers from town used to go over there and play croquet. But I remember going over there and watching the blocks of ice. You could buy blocks of ice and you put the money in the machine, and they had these two things on the side of the building. If you wanted a block of ice, you put your money in and the block of ice would come sliding out. So I mean, that was way after the ice card thing and all that kind of stuff. But they weren't delivering it in horse and buggies or anything at that time. But I mean, I was in high school, but I still remember these big blocks of ice sliding down the ramps.
When did it become a mall with stores then?
That's a good question. I would guess probably the late 60s or early 70s. I'm looking at her over here to see if anyone else have any idea?
I know it was the 70s because my son helped remodel it for Albora.
Okay. The 70s, okay.
Early 70s.
Yeah, that was my guess, really, late 60s, early 70s. I know that they also have one of Barrington's early fire hose carts over there on display in the mall. That's on loan from the Historical Society. So.
May I ask you, in your opinion, who are the great, I would almost call them historical figures of Barrington? You've mentioned Albora. You've mentioned Mr. Klingenberg. Now I know we have a street, Lega Schulte. And who would you feel are the great fathers or founding fathers, the pillars of Barrington?
Probably Ardent Lyons as well would be included in that group. Robertson's family, Lyle Alverson, who was, very involved in the community in his early years here and later as an attorney. Probably other individuals besides Bill Klingenberg and Al Bohr, and that there were probably individuals from Barrington Hills, Ted Rigman, who was involved with the bicentennial in Barrington and was a real leader in leading the committees on with that event. Also, there were other people involved with the Historical Society over the years that contributed, did a lot of historical research, and I can't go into a complete list, but there were many people that were, early founders and stalwarts in the community that helped mold this community.
When I look at other communities like Hoffman Estates, Arlington, Palatine, they have a great depth and dimension and a huge land area. And it always surprised me that even as a child, I thought any land above the expressway was Barrington, and anything south of Wakanda was Barrington. And later I found to my surprise that Barrington actually is a very small village, and you had these other villages popping out of the farmland, South Barrington, North Barrington, Lake Barrington, Barrington Hills, Tower Lakes. And I know when I was a child, we went to Tower Lakes, and they were selling acreage. I believe it was 5 acres for $3,000. And I asked my parents to lend me the money. And they said, "You're only 8 years old." I said, "Well, I'll pay you back $2 a week." And they said, "Why do you want 5 acres in Tower Lake?" I said, "Well, it's beautiful. And then when I'm ready for college, I could sell it and probably finance my college education." Well, unfortunately, they did not put down the $3,000 to their error, and mine. I could have been living in Tower Lakes. However, what do you think was the impetus to keeping the village and was within certain boundaries? Why they didn't expand as other communities and villages?
Well, I think a direct result of that happening that way was because of the estates and properties out west of town in Barrington Hills, and that they restricted the growth of the community. And I think that the fact that there were a lot of early settlers here in the 20s and that had these huge estates, you know, the Smith family, Harold Byron Smith family, and Hart families, and all of those, all restricted the growth of the community, and as well as the lakes. We have beautiful lakes here and a beautiful environmental area. And I think all of those working together, all of those components have helped to restrict the growth. You know, unlike Schaumburg, which is just mushroomed, they have a lot of business there, but they don't really have the beautiful environment that we have here in Barrington and the quality of life.
What changes to the Barrington area, in addition to street lights and paved roads, and especially development, do you recall? For example, when you mentioned you were in high school, do you remember certain developments springing forth from horse farms and other farms?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really remember a lot of major infrastructure improvements or anything like that in the community over the years. I remember the water tower, Hillside and Huff, they rebuilt that. I never really did know what the water tower was all about, but you know, that was a big project. As far as the properties around here, I've seen a lot of the suburbs, or a lot of the developments, housing developments. I know that we moved up to Dundee Avenue, out past the St. Matthew Lutheran Church there. It was all field area, and that was later developed by Lagerschuld, and it's a beautiful area now, residential area. But I remember when I was in high school and that you know, I could go across the street and the field would go forever, and all the way back to the E. J. Railroad tracks, and you could walk behind Evergreen Cemetery, and that was all wild area. And now, you know, they've expanded the cemetery up there, and also Shrek has built those apartments back there. But you could always, you know, enjoy the environment around here, and there was always an opportunity to enjoy the wildlife.